Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, wa sahbihi wa man walah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullah khair. Today session, our brother Abdul is going to take us away. Brief introduction to himself. Brother, Alhamdulillah, he's got nearly 6 years experience working within project management, working previously before American Express and now working for Twilio, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. He's going to go through a lot of things which I'll leave with him, but inshallah, we could all benefit from this. Barakallahu feek, jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. Shahla khair, Ahmed, for the introduction. Ahmed basically introduced me. I'm a technical program manager. I've been doing this for since I graduated from university, and it's just to give my experiences and to anyone that wants to get into it, if they've got any questions, anything they want to know more about, feel free to let me know. As is a small audience with us, feel free to stop me at any time. If anything's unclear, you want to ask any questions with regards to it. Okay. So in terms of technical program management, what is technical program management? So it's a term that we use today because of everything's becoming digitalized. So what was your program and project managers are now technical program project managers because of everything's being digitalized in terms of most businesses today run a business which involves some sort of digitalization or technology. So as a technical program manager, in terms of a program manager or project manager, it's basically one who oversees projects or programs in one given go. In terms of that, we oversee a whole project or program, and it's from the whole life cycle. So from defining up until the finished product. As I was just stating now, all businesses that have technology to drive their product or services usually do have a technical program manager or project manager to drive it for them, and that's just to make sure that the end goal or the deliverables are met. And one thing about technical program managers or program managers themselves is that they work with all aspects within the business. So this ranges from the ones that you're in most contact with most of the time, which is your software engineers, product designers, architects, to C-level executives, so your CFOs, your COOs, and so on. So it's really a role which is very broad, but one that really shows you all aspects of a business and kind of puts all the pieces together. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what is the difference between a program and a project manager, or what is the difference between program management and project management? So in all honesty, they are quite similarly and probably 90% the same. The only difference is the actual project or program you're managing, where projects, for example, have a limited time frame. You usually have a project and you have a set budget, set timeline, set way of working, where with a program they can run without a fixed end. So this means, for example, a program manager can stay on a program indefinitely. So that means while a project manager is in charge of the project from beginning to end, a program manager can run a program, leave the program, and come back to it at another given time. Another thing about project management is that while most project managers would work on a project, based on project to project. So that basically means they would work on one project, and then once that project is finished and it's been signed off, they will go into the next project. So it's more working in a way where not in parallel, but in terms of it's very different. While a program manager, in what we usually say, is basically working time to time with mini projects or programs, and all of that interlinked as one major program. So for example, a program could be, for example, changing your company's intranet, for example. There's different aspects of changing the company's intranet in terms of, for example, if the intranet was more like I was Microsoft and you're changing it to Google, then there's different layers which you have to do and different ways to go about it. Where if it's a one-time effort, then it will be literally just seen as a project. Nearly all technology companies, especially the MGMs, so the magnums. So we call magnums basically the big six tech firms in the world, similar to what you do. You have the big four accounting firms in the world. So it's Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft. And those companies usually have a program methodology vision. So usually most of their business goals, strategies are run by a program methodology rather than on a project basis. And that's just because of the way the world we live in today, where everything's evolving and everything one's trying to be better than the other, which makes more sense to have it within a program methodology. Hope that makes sense. So in terms of a TPM, the roles and responsibilities are quite broad. So similar to a project, you'll be defining requirements, you'll be defining project scopes, and you'll be managing schedules. One main responsibility, which is kind of a TPM responsibility, it's testing and reviewing solutions. So it's one of your your main day-to-day jobs, where what you'll be doing is basically when you have defined the requirements and the project scopes, and you've tested, for example, the scope which you have in hand, and you're sending it for implementation, you start your software life cycle development. Once that is complete, is reviewing your solutions and making sure that what has been built or what has been set makes or correlates with the requirements and the project scope. And within a TPM, we run through an agile methodology. So it's work simultaneously, where you define, implement, test, and review. And then once that review process is complete, then you'll go into the next step, and there's more making sure that circle keeps on spinning. One other responsibility, which is kind of it's a big responsibility within it, with being a TPM. It's generating and presenting reports. And when I say presenting, it's more, for example, I would say about 70% of your time you'll be speaking with technical teams. So you'll be speaking in languages which are very technical, and something that you would need to have that understanding to know in terms of what needs to be done. However, once that is done, then you would need to translate those technical terms into non-technical terms, so you can present to a non-technical audience. So that can be, for example, to a specific customer, because it could be to your business. And so it's really making sure that you know different ways of communicating, in terms of when you're communicating to get something done from someone technical, and also when you're communicating, explaining what has been done to a non-technical audience. Okay. So skills and qualifications need to become a TPM. So what I've done here is kind of listed like just the industry skills which are needed. For example, if one, for example, is in a current profession and they want to get into project management, program management, these are the type of like industry known qualifications which kind of does set you apart from different candidates. And usually when you do apply for the MA and GM companies, so the big six companies within tech, it'll make your profile a lot stronger if you have one of these qualifications already, including experience. But in terms of skills, I would say that it's a saying that program manager, project managers spend about 80% of their time communicating. So as you know, today there's many communication tools which we have. The one that the majority of tech firms use is Slack. And as long as you're a very good communicator, you've probably got half the skills already to become a very good project or program manager. And that's just because you're always coordinating, you're always managing schedules, making sure that things are on time, things are on budget, and that can only be done by you at the helm, making sure that you're on top of things and communicating to the right people at the right time, and making sure that your message is heard. So with communication, there's also leadership skills, making sure that people do trust you, and so not people, but your colleagues do trust you, and that what you're defining and what you're signing off is something that was part of the actual project program which you're managing. So in terms of skills and qualifications, I would say the main one is being a good communicator. But then again, if you really want to go and really take a step into this career, then yeah, it'll be good to have these type of qualifications. But one thing I would say is, for example, if you really are into getting into program or project management, always look for those. There's always free courses like LinkedIn Learning, like Udemy. See what it's about, and once you've seen what it's about, basically, if it is something that you really want to go into, then yeah, have a look at doing these courses and see how it is. Okay. So how to get into technical program management. So the first step I would say is research. When I say research, is making sure that you know exactly what technical program management is, what it consists of, and really knowing what a day-to-day role is. So that could be, for example, just going on LinkedIn or Indeed and seeing if there's a technical program management role available, and see what the roles and responsibilities are. If it is something that interests you, then the next step would be, for example, if you don't have a related degree, or if you're from a completely different degree, then get a professional qualification. I think that's the best way to get into it now. It is, I would say, it's an upcoming area to get into, in terms of because of the industry we're in, and because of the way technology is evolving. So I would say to do that. The third step would be networking with industry experts within the field. So it is something that I do with day to day. And people do say, for example, technical program management or program management is kind of a mid-level senior role. I tend to disagree. And the reason is because of really and truly, if you really are a good communicator, if you really are someone that kind of knows how things go together, then it is the role for you. When I first started about 5 years ago, I started at entry level. It was a role that was made for me, and I had a mentor, principal, who was mentoring me, and then from there, I kind of known, for example, the key ways of making sure that to get my craft going, and then from there, literally everything's set in stone. So if you do look at roles which do say, for example, you need 5-10 years experience, and the majority of the roles do say that, then I would say that there are roles out there which you can start with no experience or 1 year experience, and then from there go ahead. What you can also do, for example, is also, if you are working within a large corporation, or within a corporation which has some sort of technical background. For example, the main USP of your company is to sell a service, or through technology, or sell products. Then see, for example, if they have a similar role, like a program management role, a project management role, and then from there, see, for example, those people who run those roles, what they do, what their day-to-day jobs are, and go from there. And then yeah, step four would be, yeah, get into a role, build experience, and the main thing is always building a portfolio. And I would say that's your best bet in terms of going the next step in terms of up the ladder. In terms of, for example, when you finish a program or a project, it's always good to just detail, for example, the duration of your project, the budget of your project, how many people on your project, and in terms of the level of how can I say, of complexity it was compared to other projects, and have that portfolio. And then from there, it really builds you in good stead. For example, if you really see a job that you want to apply for, then it kind of it builds your profile up, for example, where you can put for example, these achievements onto your CV. So when you get into an interview, you can say, I've done X, Y, and Z for A, B, and C, for example, and it really does get you organized. So yeah, I think that was it. It was quite a quick presentation because of the magnitude of the role. It is really a rewarding role, and I would say that anyone that wants to get into it, really do have a look at it. Do, like I said, step one, do research. Do see, for example, what is needed to become a successful technical program manager, and from there, see if it's a fit for you. But yeah, without research, you wouldn't know. So that would be my first step of recommendation. So yeah, I may have spoken too fast, but if there's any questions, yeah, please do let me know.
I was going to ask you, do you know when you mentioned earlier about technical knowledge, meaning like technical, for example, terminology.
Yeah.
Like if I was to ask you, for example, it says a two-part question. So the first one would be, what kind of like acronyms and terminology should one like study and learn the most about? So for example, Python, for example.
Yeah.
And also the second question is about like resources. Is there a place where I can find like maybe the most common technical terms and basically learn them?
Yeah. So in terms of your first question, in terms of where would one know in terms of how or where the technical terminology, sorry, the technical languages, I would say, for example, me myself, I don't come from a technical background, but it's more just knowing the basics. So, for example, most of the stuff that I do, for example, run with APIs. So it's just the basics of, for example, knowing how to test an API, how to how to manage an API, how to make sure an API is working well, how to make sure an API is defined, and so forth and so on. So I would say, for example, learning, for example, Python is actually good. However, it'll be good, for example, just to know the fundamentals of how coding languages work. So, for example, how APIs connect, how, for example, software engineers, for example, who run your code, the types of languages they use and why they use different types of languages. It could be due to latency. So, for example, one language could be quicker than another language. So, I would say, for example, just knowing in terms of the how it is. It's much better than actually doing the actual learning the actual language. But by no means it's always good to learn the language, because then it puts you in a better step. For example, because when you're having these technical conversations with a software engineer, for example, or when you are reviewing a software engineer's for example, something that they've defined for you based on your requirements, then you knowing that language, you can see, for example, that if there is a better way of doing it, or if that is the best way of doing it. So I would say, by all means, learn the language if that's what you're after. But moreover, it's more just having that broad knowledge of understanding what they're saying. So, for example, when you're writing requirements and they're showing you the solution for it, knowing that the solution is showing you. In terms of the second question, in terms of acronyms, really there isn't that much acronyms within the tech world. To be fair, it's much different to, for example, when you go into sales or other types of careers or industry sectors. There are lots of acronyms. With one thing about technical, speaking with technical people, they're very direct. So the main acronyms which you'll get are just acronyms which explain the basics of, for example, an API, for example, or a UI, or just main things like that. But in terms of resources, I think LinkedIn is the best resource. I will look if there are other resources which I can find out, and I should let you know.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم.
Kareem, could you explain a few of the benefits for working within the sector of project management or program management? It doesn't have to be work. It can be like, that come with the role, company, etc.
Okay. I would say one of the biggest, well, there's two massive, how can I say, benefits that come with it. I think the first one is you are respected for the work you do. Like I said, you're in communication with all aspects of a company, depending on the type of project you're doing or program you're doing. So because of that, your work is unnoticed, and there's a lot of emphasis which within what you're doing. Again, that comes with pressure. That comes with you have that pressure to get something delivered, or knowing the reasons why it needs to be delivered. But that's the biggest one. And the second biggest one is the flexibility. As a project or program manager, you know that, for example, you have a deadline, and that deadline is set in stone, for example. But then once you do a few, like I would say, for example, from my personal perspective, once I've done about 10 projects, then I knew that, for example, I kind of got on the ropes of knowing how program or project works, and for example, overestimating on budgets is not a bad thing to do, and it kind of saves you time and anything that's unexpected. So for example, if you know a project's going to be a 6-week or 8-week project, then always add 50% to it, so make it a 9 or 12-week project. And that's not in hindsight on your side, but it's a win-win for you. If you get that project done within 10 weeks or 9 weeks, then you're under budget, and if you get that project on time, then you get that project on time. So yeah, the main one is flexibility, and also you work at your own pace. When you work at your own pace, it's just making sure you're on top of the small things. So like I said, being a good communicator and your communication skills are really massive in terms of knowing, for example, what needs to be done. Like it could just be, for example, if you've got a project which involves like 3 or 4 software engineers, it could be just sending a daily Slack reminder to those team members, asking them what's the progress, how's it going, if you're stuck on anything, let me know, and more being that coordinator. So yeah, being a flexibility, and your work being out there, it's I would say are the main benefits within program and project management.
Jazakallah khair. What would you say is the demand for somebody who's working within that field? Is it high? Is it medium, low?
The demand is quite high now, I would say. To be fair, I was doing it at a time. So I started off as a technical project manager, and it was a time where not many companies had it. And that was mainly because of not many companies were digitalized. So it's more, the role which I was doing was more based on within projects, there was like technical aspects, like for example, system design, system requirements, which were needed within those projects, and that's the reason why I was on board. But now, from what I see, for example, especially working now with corporations like Twilio, for example, and prior to that, Boku, I see that technical program managers work on all aspects within the company. So it could be internally, it can be it can be with the business's customers, it can be outsourcing for the business. So it's really, really massive, and it's something that I would say it's growing, and is growing more. Like for example, you could be on a project today which is like, for example, changing your company from Outlook to Gmail, which is an internal project. But then again, you could be on but then your next project could be, for example, the business you work for provide a service digitally for clients, and then you're setting their system up with your system from a technical perspective. So those requirements also need to be written. So there's no two ways about it. And yeah, like I said, it's really it's a role where you are really at the forefront of what you're doing for the business. And it's something that, for example, a lot of engineering managers, software engineers, business operators, IT engineers, it's kind of what they see as a role which kind of shows their capabilities for the company. So I would say, for one, do explore it if you are in those roles, and also just see, for example, how it is within your company. What do they do? Because it is very broad. Like I would say, not 2 program managers or project managers would work on similar projects. Is all very broad.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I was gonna ask a question, yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, in relation to
No, feel free to ask as many as you like.
in relation to like CVs, yeah. Do you know, like when you have like, for example, yeah, my previous role, I was doing a junior BA role.
Okay.
Yeah, but obviously now like there's a big gap on my CV, innit?
Okay.
I don't know, like I feel like, you know, when I'm applying to, like, I don't know, product manager roles or anything like that, I don't know, is the gap in my CV like affecting my possibility? Like, cause like, let's say, for example, like I've been out of work for like nearly a year now. Yeah, like does that have like a huge impact, or like, I don't know, innit? I was asking, like.
I don't think it has a huge impact. Well, for me, I wouldn't know in terms of what the current market is, but I don't think it would have a huge impact as long as you've got experience. And if you do, for example, have a gap in your CV, then I would say the main thing is that the experience which you do show, try and maximize its potential. So, for example, where you've gained maximum, for example, experience in one role, showcase that as a lot more than the gap. So that, for example, if a recruiter, for example, or a hiring manager does see that gap, then that your experience or your technical capabilities or your competencies are higher than or are seen more than the actual gap. But I would say not. I would say it shouldn't do. And like I was always saying, for example, being in a BA role, it's very similar. For example, as a program manager, as for example, you're analyzing, for example, you're pulling the strings for business. So yeah, I would say, for example, just try put as much emphasis of what you've done in those roles to make that gap does not noticeable at all.
Yeah. Okay. No, خير. I appreciate that, bro. جزاك الله خير.
وياكم. Anyone else got any questions? I think it's just, I think Ahmed left, but I was just to add on. I think research is the biggest part. For me, for example, before I became a technical programmer or project manager or got into project management, I was like technical account manager. So I was just managing the technical configurations for given accounts for the company I worked for, and there was the guy sitting next to me on my desk was a technical project manager, and being interested in what he does and having and doing the research really thought that it would be an industry for me. So doing research is something that I would heavily recommend, and making sure that you kind of know exactly what the steps are to get into it, and making sure that you know what type of role or what type of way of doing things are beneficial for you. So for example, if you do see yourself as a good communicator, if you do see yourself as somebody that kind of has that wants to know, for example, more, or wants to know how things are, or how your business operates, or how, for example, how projects are run, then do get into it. Start speaking to maybe colleagues, see if there's a position within that, if there is a position within your company. And it doesn't, most technical program managers, project managers, even program managers, they would love to, for example, someone that would be a mentee. So being a mentee is there's nothing wrong with that, and it does build you in the right step. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I was just gonna. Not a question, is more of a request, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible if I could send you my CV and you can look at it and maybe tell me what maybe I should fix and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, definitely, no, well, 100%. I think I'm just looking. I think we're connected on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah,
we are. Yeah, so by all means, you can send it to me via LinkedIn, and we can. I can have a look at it. Or we can set a day where we can have like a screen share and look into it.
Inshallah. No, I really appreciate your time, man. Allah barik
fiik. It's completely fine. Do you have any PM qualifications or anything? Are you looking to do any?
Do you know what it is? Yeah. I was thinking to do Scrum certification.
Yeah.
Because they'll say that, because a lot of the previous roles I've interviewed for, they're all using Agile. I worked in an Agile environment anyway, so I understand the processes. But I understand like the significance of having it on your CV and it's like showing that you can do it, like your competency. But I have no PM qualifications, but my degree is in business management and project management. So the first year is like normal business, then the third year I specialize basically in project management in it. So obviously I understand project management like technically in it.
No, that's quite good. Yeah. No, I was gonna say, for example, Scrum Master is a good one. AGP is a good one. Being an Agile practitioner. they're the main ones that are, for example, someone that, for example, I do recommend, for example, if someone's trying to do, well, not you, for example, if someone's trying to do a career switch or look into project management as their next career, to do those qualifications, because yeah, they are qualifications which, for example, recruiters, hiring managers do see as a like the something that has to be on your CV, especially for those big six tech firms. I think they is a set in stone. For example, if you have those qualifications, and they want, yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, then yeah, no, definitely. Let's go ahead and yeah, by all means, yeah. I can send you my email address via LinkedIn, or you can directly send it to me via LinkedIn, whichever one you prefer.
Inshallah, yeah, no, I'll do that tonight, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, then. I think Ahmed has
There's
dropped
no
out.
other
Oh,
questions?
yeah, Ahmed. Sorry, I thought you dropped out.
Still, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
No other questions. Inshallah, we will wrap up there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاك الله خير.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam.